My guest today is Rodrigo Kede Lima, the president of Latin America at Microsoft, where he leads a world-class team covering several countries. Rodrigo has had a tremendous leadership journey, working across the United States, Latin America, and Asia, with some amazing learnings and experiences working with different cultures and people across the world. I've asked Rodrigo to come on today to talk a little bit about his leadership journey, share some experiences with us that we can learn from, and hone in on our craft as we continue to make a broader people impact. So without further ado, Rodrigo Kede, thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Thank you very much. My pleasure to be here.
So I've obviously done quite a bit of research on your profile, right? You've had tremendous journey, like across the world, multiple different cultures and countries, and several highlights that I've picked up just by looking at some of your profiles and your experiences. And I'd love to get into some of that, but before I do, I'd love to start off with the early days, like the real beginning of your journey. Like, talk to me a little bit about how it all started and how you got to become into the role that you're in today.
Oh, that started a long time ago in the early 90s. I mean, I went to college to be an engineer, and I almost became a doctor, a medical doctor. But at the last minute, I switched to engineering. And I started working, was about 1993 in an internship program with IBM. 1993 is a long time ago. And I started my career in finance, not actually working directly with technology. And since then, my career has been moving in the direction that I always wanted to, but never predictable. I mean, I worked in finance for a long period of my career. Then I switched roles and I moved it to the business, always working in Brazil, which is my home country, and external and outside. And at some point, I was running the operations of Brazil for my company at that time, and then I came to US to run US and Canada, and I ended up landing in Microsoft almost about 2 years ago to run Latin America. So a career that has been international, has been on moving, from countries with different cultures, from going to certain, areas to different areas. So always challenging myself on basically trying to do things that I've never done before. So that was interesting.
Again, a really incredible journey there, right? And, going from engineering to finance to some of these big corporate companies across the world, and then also with multiple different countries along the way, a lot of challenges that you'd have to take on. But I'm sure a lot of support and sponsorship from senior leadership people that believe in you, that want to make that investment in you and trust you as well to take on a lot of these big roles. I'm super curious around some of these roles that you've taken on. Like, obviously, you're responsible for large organizations of people, customers, partners, just countries across the region. Like, do you feel like you've had to set yourself apart to be recognized for some of these senior roles earlier on in your career?
Um, you know, I I think that every move of my career was actually driven by, I know what I wanted. I know what I knew about my dreams. I knew about where I could go, but I was always focused on doing my best at the job that I was doing. And every big move of my career was actually not planned. Every big move of my career actually happened with, my leadership saying, "Why not?" Right? So in different times in my life. So when I started working, I was an engineer, a mechanical engineer. Somebody offered me a position in finance, and there was why not? At some point, there I was offered a position in US, and I didn't ask. They said, why not? I always wanted to have an international career, but I was not expecting that to happen at that time. At some point, somebody said, you know what? You like to be with customers. You like to manage large organizations. You like people. Why don't you come and run a division of the company? And I said, okay, why not? And at some point, somebody came to me and they said, you're running Latin America. The numbers are good. The team is good. You know, there's some unique things that were done in the region. Why don't you come and run US and Canada, which is, you know, it's on the same continent, but to be honest, very different, right? The customers are different. The culture is different. And I said, why not? So, so it is interesting, but at the same time, on one hand, I always had my aspirations and my dreams always based on the impact that I could have in the organization. I was never saying, this is where I want to go now. This is where I want to go next. It was always myself getting very focused on doing the best where I was, and then the opportunities they were presented to me.
You know, again, thank you so much for sharing that context, right? Like really that element of taking on additional tasks, taking on additional challenges, and also being great with businesses, being great with customers, but above and beyond that, being great with people. And
Yep.
I've had the opportunity to connect with some of the people that have worked with you along the way, right? And there's a few things that come up every time I've done a little bit of research around your profile. It's trust, authenticity, reliability, knowing where I stand. But this one really caught me the most, right? Just primarily around leadership, which is around elevating people. Like a lot of the folks that I've talked to that worked in your organization had a real emphasis on your ability and your leadership around elevating them in their careers and in their journeys in your organization. And so I want to talk a little bit about that leadership aspect on it, right? I'm curious to learn a little bit more about your leadership philosophy and people that work in your organization that have a desire to want to make an impact from a leadership perspective. How do you foster that leadership within your organization?
Yeah, first, I think that every leader has a responsibility, right? If you are a leader at home, you are a parent, you have a responsibility to make sure that your kids grow with the right values, they grow healthy. And the same thing is valid for your friends and for an organization. I always had a few fundamental principles of the way I work. First one we talked about, which is if you want to grow, you need to get out of your comfort zone. So that is when they asked me, do you want to leave finance and go and run a division of the company? And I said, yeah, I think I can do it. I don't know most of the stuff that I'm going to have to do, but I will learn, right? So when you get out of your comfort zone, and getting out of your comfort zone is not learn a skill that you don't have. It's much more than that. It's really getting uncomfortable. You start in the day and you say, I don't know even where to start, right? That's when you do learn and you grow as a professional and as a person, because you need also to be humble, because everyone around you, they know more than you, right? So getting out of the comfort zone is something that I believe personally, and I've been working with my team to always get that. The second is you need to work with people that are better, braver, different than you. So I always tell my team, if you get to a point in where you are the smartest person in the room, you failed. You are failing as a leader, right? Because there is no way you're going to grow as a person and professionally if you're surrounded by people that are not better than you. People sometimes get uncomfortable, especially if you are a manager or a leader and you do have people working for you that they are brilliant. And I said, that's a blessing, right? So having people that think different than you, that are braver than you, that they are, really smart, makes you better, makes the organization better, and it's going to be good for you, right? So that's what I tell my team, and I really incentive them to go after that. You know, you got to be, and I was at a point in my career that became a personal like metric for me, and I said, always stop it at some point and say, I look to my team. Do I need people? Do I see people here that are at different levels that are much better than I am? I say, yeah, I do. So that's great. And not everyone thinks like that, because we still live in a world where power is more important than the outcome. So having the power is more important than the outcome for the customer, for the organization. And the third thing is, you always need to think that you are going to be a life learner, which means that you need to be in a constant journey of learning and learning and learning. Otherwise, you're going to become obsolete, right? So every time I get with my team, my goal is to work. I usually tell them, I work for you. My goal is to make you succeed. My goal is to 1, 2, 3 years from now, you look back and you're better. My goal is not to try to teach you. My goal is to help you get there. I'm going to teach you the things that I am strong, but at the same time, I'm okay to show you the things that I'm not strong, and maybe I can learn from you too. So being vulnerable and authentic is also important, right? So I think nobody is better than a team. There's no individual that is better than a team. So yeah, I'm glad that's what you hear from people, because that is a fundamental belief that I have, and it's not uncommon that during my leadership, jobs that I had, that I give books to my team. The book is great content and also a message sometimes, but there's a book that has been given many times to different groups, which is a book from Clayton Christensen from Harvard Business School. The guy passed away. The book is How Will You Measure Your Life? And he's the guy that wrote The Innovator's Dilemma. He was an advisor for many of these tech entrepreneurs that we see today. And one day he found out he had cancer, and he realized that he's going to pass at some point, sooner or later. And he said, what did I do with my life? Was my life good? One day I'm going to be facing, the other side. That's how he phrases it. And then somebody's going to come to me and say, let me discuss how did we measure your life? And his conclusion is, it's not about your car, it's not about your house, it's not about your money or a bank account. It's not about any material thing. It's going to be about the positive influence and the impact that you had on others, right? So again, any leader is the responsibility to not inspect the team or manage the team, is to grow the team, is to get them better through time. So that's what I believe.
I have to tell you, I absolutely love that. And so out of everything that you're saying there, these are some of the things that I'm really picking up. It's that number one element of leadership in terms of how you foster it is elevating the thinking and the understanding around leadership at home, leadership with your friends, leadership with your community, right? And I feel like that's the number one foundation and base of leadership, is just acknowledging that, right? And then the second thing you talked about there was really going into the uncomfort zone, taking on challenges and making an impact that way. And then the third thing you talked about there was around surrounding yourself with the right network and ecosystem to continue to learn, but also contribute to make an impact. And then the last thing you said there, which really resonates to who you are as a character based on everything that I've heard so far about you is your ability to be a servant leader to help people around you and help them become better. And then also the book recommendation as well, right? In terms of how you measure your impact to communities and societies around you. And I loved how you broke that down because it's very valuable for the people that you lead and you represent. And I'm so curious on that part because of course, me having this conversation with you right now, I'm already intaking so much and I'm learning so much just as your direct leadership team. But of course, as a senior executive, you have multiple teams underneath you, right? And so, of course, the people that you talk to every day, the people that you meet with on a regular basis, that you can hand out these books to, that you can have these conversations with, I have no doubt they're getting an extreme amount of value from you. But I'm curious about how do you roll that out to all the other people underneath those leaders and across the organization? How do you roll out that consistent theme of leadership and value with everybody in such a large group?
Yeah, so it's always the challenge, right? If you think
Right,
about Satya, I mean, one of the reasons I
right,
came to Microsoft um, is because Satya has the ability to be a great technologist and a great humanist, same person. So it's very rare to find that in one single
right,
person. But what he did, he can't be in every customer. He
right,
can't be in every deal. He can't talk to every people, but one way or another, the way he thinks systemically is through culture, right?
right,
So I have been doing a few things, right? Which is not reinventing the wheel. The wheel is try to do what he's doing at a different scale. I'm trying to build a culture in the organization around that, on the things that I believe. So that goes from making sure that leadership is on the same page. They might be very different than I am, but we share the same values. We want the same goals. We want the same thing. We have the heart in the right place altogether, right? It's also about not stopping at your direct reports or your key leaders, right? So I do spend an incredible amount of time going in different levels of the organization. So I make sure that there is always people that are influencers, people that have important roles, although at different level, that can help bring the message just by talking to you, just understanding the way you think. Now, so talking to leaders, talking to different levels is important in driving a macro agenda in the whole organization. I mean, let me give you one example. We created a mantra in my first few months on the job because I wanted people to go after a bigger dream. And I said, look, let's use this mantra. The mantra is we want to be map makers, not travelers, right? So this is something I heard one day and I loved it, and it has a lot of messages around it. And in our organization, everyone is talking about this, right? Everyone comes to talk to me and talk about their map maker plan, their map maker actions, their map maker initiatives. So, fortunately, there are ways where you can share your vision, you can deliver your message, and you don't get just at your leadership, the message at your leadership level. Although if the leadership is not on the same boat, it won't happen anyway. So it's kind of both. It's culture and leadership. And last point, I do believe that as a leader, we do have an obligation. So, it's not unusual that like Saturday morning or Friday afternoon, I have somebody that doesn't work for me, doesn't work in my organization, sometimes doesn't work even in the company anymore. There's a lot of cases where people wants to talk to me. They want to get my advice, and I do give them the time. I find a way to give them the time because if it's for their personal growth, if it's for them to be better, I'll find a way. So I see that. I love to do that, but I also see that as a obligation of leadership, right? We have to do that.
It's kind of like your duty, right? And I love how you mentioned the element of culture and the element of having everybody in the boat with you so you can carry out a theme. And thanks for sharing that theme, by the way. That's pretty cool. I love how you do that, right? And you mentioned there as well, it's not easy. It's pretty hard. And I'd like to know, like, if you were to think of one of the failures you've had as a leader or in your leadership journey, what would you say that failure is, and what have you learned from it?
I mean, first, it's funny that you're asking this because I I do believe when I look back, there were many failures, right? There's nothing that I didn't learn with it. Um, but I don't think that a career is linear.
Mm-hmm.
In any career, as in life, you do have ups and downs, you have good and bad moments. My grandpa used to say, it's not how many times you win, it's how many times you stand up. Because winning is easy, you know, win is an easy sentiment. When you're down, that you need the energy to stand up and continue to move. I had many, but I have made mistakes on career decisions. But I think that likely the thing that I mostly learned with was 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 having the wrong person with the wrong attitude in the organization because the person was brilliant, had a
Right.
very high IQ. And I've done that mistake more than once. Somebody that I was really amazing. I mean, what the person could do technically or with a customer or what within a specific industry was amazing. But there was more than once the person was very toxic. Was a person that was difficult to trust. Was a person that was a problem to the organization. And either I took time or to make a decision there, or I accepted the person in the organization because we have the need of that specific skill at that time. Um, and and when I think about, you always want somebody that has a high performance and high trust. You put in the matrix and you say, I need somebody here in the quadrant that is high performance, high trust. My learning was never go with a person that you can trust. Um, you can go with a person that doesn't have high performance, but you can fully trust because you can elevate that performance. It is likely that you can elevate that performance much more than we can get a person with high performance to get to trust. So that was a big learning for me. And there was, of course, impacts in the organization. We ended up losing customers. We ended up losing good people, other good people. So the damage was big because of that. Eventually, we recovered, we fixed it, but those were big failures, in my opinion.
Thank you so much for being so authentic and open with that story. I appreciate that. For a lot of up and coming leaders today that have not yet reached some of those experiences and have not had the overall journey that you've had so far, right? Like if you were to give them one piece of advice around honing in and becoming better leaders today, what would you say to the up and coming leaders that are watching this?
I would say two things. One is I didn't listen to my instincts.
Hmm.
Uh, so I tried to be too pragmatic and too numeric. And life is much more complex than that. So my
Right.
instinct was saying this is going to be a problem. In my opinion, I went to the easy path. The second thing is I had many mentors in my career. A mentor is not somebody that has a higher level than you necessarily and can't be one person. I mean, if somebody asks, do you have one mentor? No, I have many. There are people that help me on this area, people that help me in the different area, people. So I'm likely to have, a handful of mentors, maybe more than one hand, two hands, people that I go to, that I trust, people that I can share things, people that will tell me the truth, right? Um, if you do have an organization where loyalty and honesty are in different groups, you have a problem, right? So I do believe people are loyal when they tell me the truth, even if the truth is gonna hurt me, because if somebody's giving me the truth, is telling me the truth, is because they want me to. So having good mentors that can really share their experience and give their honest opinion, I think it's critical. So that would be my recommendation. Follow your instincts and have good mentors.
Great way to put it. It's really having that ability to trust yourself, but surround yourself with the right network as well that can be honest with you, but also you be self-aware enough to receive honest feedback, whether
Yeah.
you like it or not, right? Yeah, it's a great way to put it. I'm curious on the end of the journey, much, much, much further from now. I'd love to know what is it that you want to be known for, or better yet, from the book that you talked about. How would you like to measure your impact at the end of the journey?
You know, I will be honest with you that there is another book that I gave to the team. I even gave to my former boss at Microsoft. It's called From David Brooks, The Second Mountain. And it talks about somebody that had a successful career, you know, made good money. And at some point you stop and you say, there's something more that I need to accomplish in life. And when you have gone through that first mountain of professional success, which can continue, but you need something more, right? So I'm in that moment where I still believe I have a lot of calories to burn at work. I still, you know, want to work under a lot of adrenaline for many years. But look, maybe I'm going to live another 50 years. If I take my family as a reference, it will likely to get close to that.
Right.
So I want my life to be fulfilling. So look, for me, every job that I finish, I like to look back and see that people still come back to me. We made that place a better place, right? So I don't think there was a job, even with the mistakes and the failures, I don't think there was a job where I look back and I say, I didn't make that thing, that group, that organization, that business, those customers better because of what I did. When I start from the start, when I left, it is a better place. So my goal is to, at a later time of my life, two things. One, look back and be able to be clear that this is what I have done, right? I have impacted customers and people in a positive way. And then personally, I do want to dedicate my life to help others. It's likely to be on nonprofit. It's likely to be around helping to eliminate poverty. Could be something around sustainability too, because I think this is a problem for our generation. You know, we have been talking about climate change for 50 years now, and now it's our problem. I mean, there's no grandkids for me, no decent life for them if this is not fixed. So it's likely those are the two things I will focus my life at some point.
That is very, very, very inspirational. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. I'm a massive fan of everything you're doing. I really, really appreciate everything we talked about today and all the insights that you've shared. But before I let you go, I want to ask you one last question, just for a little bit of fun, because I know you're such a well-traveled executive. You've been to so many places across the world. I'm so curious on one experience that you've had from a different culture that surprised you the most and, created a little bit of fun and experience for you.
So look, I had all kinds of interesting things, right? But on one hand, I think I'm a very open person. I mean, I try to be an open person. So every time I travel to a place, I try to observe, I try to learn from them, I ask questions. But there was all kinds of things, right? One day, I'm not going to mention the country, but going to a Latin America country where, and by the way, we're soccer, we have soccer rivalry, right? So when you get close to people, you become closer friends. They kiss you in the cheek, right? So men kiss you in the cheek, and in Brazil, men don't do that to men. And people, one guy came and kissed me, and then the other guy came and kissed me. I said, "Why they're doing this?" And it was funny because that's their way of demonstrating we like you, we trust you. And then I kissed my two sons, right? So I asked her the question, why do you guys do this? And I said, well, don't you do this with your kids? And I said, yes, I do. I said, you see, our brain is wired the wrong way, right? And I was a good learning, was funny actually, the way it happened. And I had a situation one day with having dinner with Brazil has Sao Paulo has the largest Japanese community outside Japan, right? So this huge Japanese community there. So
Wow, I
there's a
didn't know that.
neighborhood you go there, everything is in Japanese. So the menus of the restaurants, the logos on the streets, and it's a beautiful culture, by the way. I love it. And I was having dinner, and you do have this thing about when they serve you, your drink, you need to drink it, and they need to serve you. You can't serve yourself because they invited me for dinner. So we were having dinner, and I, of course, always in a hurry, start serving me and did this. They always started laughing at me in dinner because they realized I was not being disrespectful. I was just being myself and, being, Brazilian, right? Saying Brazilian, we go and do stuff and we don't pay attention to this. So I was closing a deal with those guys, and I was so mad at me for not paying attention to that. But there are great stories about being on an airplane and not being able to communicate because it ended up in the wrong section of the airport, or getting the wrong connection because I was not speaking the language. There are all kinds of things, but all great memories.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I'm sure you can tell multiple stories around cultural adaptability from all your experiences. And I love that you share that. I'm going to ask you one last question, and I might create some trouble for this question, but I'm going to ask it to you anyway. You
Right?
mentioned football there as you started off with your first story. Greatest Brazilian footballer, Pele or Neymar?
Oh, it's Pele. I mean, I love my son. My son is gonna get mad at me because he thinks Neymar is the best of the best. But I think Pelé is just he was a more than an amazing soccer player. In my opinion, the best soccer player in the world ever. He's an athlete. He's a great citizen. He's a great human being, and I think he realized his role as a leader for other things, right? And that's why likely I admire him a lot. And it was before my generation. I mean, when he won the World Cup in 1970, I was not born, but I've seen him playing as a little small kid, and I still see it, on the video, and it's just amazing.
This has been incredible. This has been incredible. Such a great conversation, Rodrigo Kede. Really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I will leave you with one last thing and say obrigado. Appreciate it. Have a
No,
good one.
thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here. This is an area that I love to talk, and if we had another 1 hour, I would keep talking. So I do appreciate you doing this, and hopefully everyone's gonna like it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.